You know, it's kind of funny. The US government is basically having a midlife crisis. Except instead of buying a shiny new Corvette, it's blowing trillions of dollars on things like healthcare, defense, and sending out checks to millions of retirees. And trust me, you can't fix this particular crisis with a new gym membership. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, let's just put the number out there. $38 trillion. That's the U.S. national debt right now. I mean, it's a number so huge it doesn't even sound real, does it? But it's very, very real. And it's the grand total of every dollar the country has borrowed over the years.
And honestly, this quote from our source material just hits the nail on the head. It's like, when the bills show up, what do? We just borrow more money to pay them off. Every single year. And this all comes down to one little word: deficit.
So what's a deficit? It's really simple. It's just when you spend more money than you bring in a given year. You know, like running a business in the red. And the United States, well, we've been unprofitable every single year for more than 2 decades now. And lately, it's gotten way, way worse.
So that's the big question, isn't it? To figure out how the most powerful economy on earth is just bleeding cash year after year, we've got to follow the money. So let's do that. Let's dig in and see exactly where it's all going.
All right, we're decoding the federal budget. And look, I know it sounds super complicated, but really, it all boils down to just 3 main buckets of spending.
Okay, bucket number 1, mandatory spending. Think of this like your rent or your mortgage. It's locked in by law, you have to pay it. This is for huge programs like Social Security and Medicare. Then you've got discretionary spending. This is all the stuff Congress argues about every single year. Things like the military, education, that kind of stuff. And finally, net interest. And that's just the interest payment on our massive national credit card.
So when you see it laid out like this, one thing just jumps right out at you, doesn't it? That mandatory spending slice, it isn't just the biggest piece of the pie, it's like the whole pie. It absolutely dwarfs everything else. But let's drill down even further.
And this is where it gets really crazy. This is the whole ballgame right here. Forget everything else for a second. Just 5 things: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, national defense, and the interest on the debt. Those 5 things alone, they eat up almost 70% of the entire federal budget. Everything else, it's just noise. It's practically a rounding error in comparison.
Okay, but you always hear people talking about other stuff, right? The classic one is, let's just cut foreign aid. It sounds so easy, so obvious. But what do the numbers actually say?
So yeah, the US spends about $78 billion on foreign aid. It sounds like a ton of money, but if we cut every single dollar of it to zero, you know how long that would cover Social Security for? 19 days. That's it. After 19 days, we'd be right back where we started, still borrowing.
And that's why this other quote from our source is so perfect. It really puts things into perspective. Trying to fix this by cutting the small stuff, it's like trying to lose weight by switching from a regular Coke to a Diet Coke while you're still eating at McDonald's every day. You're completely missing the real problem.
So at the end of the day, that leaves us with 2 and only 2 places to look that are big enough to actually move the needle. These are the untouchable giants of the budget. They're massive, they're politically radioactive, but they're the only things that really matter.
Giant number 1, national defense. I mean, just look at this chart. The US spends more on its military than the next 10 countries combined. And yeah, that includes countries like China and Russia. So you'd think, hey, there's got to be some room to trim there, right?
Well, it's not that simple. Politically, defense spending is kind of like this national emotional support blanket. And with all the tension in the world right now, what politician is going to stick their neck out and be the one who cut the military? Yeah, probably not happening. So big cuts here? Not very likely.
Okay, so if defense is pretty much off the table, that leaves one other place to look. The real giant, mandatory spending. We're talking about the big 3, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. These 3 programs alone make up a jaw-dropping 44% of everything the government spends. And the scariest part? They're on autopilot, growing bigger every single year. This is the heart of the entire problem.
All right, so let's talk about fixing Social Security and Medicare, because this isn't some far-off hypothetical problem anymore. The clock is seriously ticking on both of these massive programs. Just look at this timeline. We're talking 2033, that's less than a decade away, when the Medicare fund for hospital insurance is set to run dry. And then, just 1 year later, in 2034, Social Security's trust fund hits the same exact wall.
These dates are coming up fast, and we need to be crystal clear about what insolvent actually means.
So, insolvency doesn't mean the money just stops. That's a common misconception. What it does mean is that, by law, automatic, across-the-board benefit cuts have to happen. For the 70 million people getting Social Security, that's a sudden 20% pay cut. For Medicare, an 11% cut to hospital benefits. And this isn't a choice. It happens automatically if Congress does nothing.
Now, the good news is this isn't an impossible problem. These programs can be fixed. For Social Security, there are really two main ideas floating around. The first is to lift the cap on the payroll tax. Right now, you only pay Social Security taxes on the first chunk of your income each year. If we change that, high earners would pay into the system on all their income, which would bring in a ton of new money. The other big idea is to tweak the benefits for wealthier retirees, to make sure the program is really helping those who need it the most.
And it's a similar story for Medicare. One potential fix is to just slightly raise the Medicare payroll tax for everybody. Another idea is to go after the tens of billions of dollars in overpayments that go to private Medicare Advantage plans every year. Just bringing those payments in line with traditional Medicare could save a huge amount of money.
Okay, so we've laid out the problems, we've talked about potential solutions, but what happens if we just don't do any of it? What's the real price of just kicking this can down the road again and again? Well, think about it. If the government has to keep borrowing trillions of dollars year after year, the people lending us that money, investors, are going to start getting nervous. They'll demand higher interest rates to cover the risk. And when the government's interest rate goes up, it creates this ripple effect that basically chokes the entire economy in slow motion.
And look, this isn't some abstract ivory tower economic theory. This hits you right where you live. It means your mortgage costs more. Your car loan costs more. The interest rate on your credit card goes up. Basically, anytime you need to borrow money, it's going to be more expensive, putting the brakes on your own financial life.
So, when you look at the whole picture, it becomes painfully clear that just doing nothing isn't a real option. There are no perfect solutions, no magic wands. Every single fix involves trade-offs and, let's be honest, some sacrifice. So the real $38 trillion question isn't what we can do, it's what are we willing to do.